Alright, let's finish this pitchfork here. So I'm going to start with our handle here. And I'm going to select it in object mode, go into edit mode, turn on X-ray. I'm going to use the edge select. And I'm going to grab this top ring by alt-clicking it. And I'm going to pick one of these, doesn't really matter which. And I'm going to alt-click that as well. Shift alt-click actually. I'm going to shift alt-click this bottom ring. And so what we should have is both the top and bottom are selected and one of the sides. And so I'm going to hit U and mark seam. And if I pull in real quick a UV editor, and I take this, select it, UV unwrap, you should see it's unfolded. That basically our handle here, and also has cut the top and bottom. But you might notice our handle is and the top seam, the scale's wrong. And the scale is wrong because right now our scale is not even close to 111. It is 0.014, 014, and 07. So we need to go into object mode, Control A, and apply all transforms. And now if we come in here and we unwrap, you can see our UV map is to scale now. And a similar thing here really, although I think I'm going to go ahead and apply the mirror modifier. And I'll Control A, I will apply all transforms. And I will go into edit mode. And I'm just going to select a point and hit the decimal key on the numpad to focus it, so it's easier to control the camera. And I'm going to alt click a loop that's running around. And I am basically planning to just cut the pitchfork in half with a UV seam. And what that should do, if we unwrap it, you see we've got it all spread out over here. We don't really have any complicated topology on it, or any like super tight corners, so I think it'll be fine that we are just simply cutting it in half. But to be sure, I'm going to bring up the side menu here, go into View, Overlays, and Stretching. And you can see, ideally everything would be this dark blue. We do have some light stretching around some of our corners, but I do think that's going to be fine in this case. I mean, it is just a pitchfork, and we're basically just going to make it look metallic and metal, and then maybe cover some rust and dirt on it. So we don't really need perfectly accurate UVs, we just need pretty good. And that's what we have right now. So I'm going to close off that UV menu for now. And I suppose now I'll start maybe with the handle. Now right now it's very, very perfect. And to make it not perfect, I'm going to go in and I'm going to hit Control R and I'm going to throw in some loop cuts. And I'm not actually sure how many this is now. I just kind of like the look of it. Okay, now that's brought this menu up, I can see I have 9. So I've done 9 loop cuts on our handle. And I'm going to go into our handle now. And I'm going to add... what else should I add? I wonder what the simple deform twist would do if I set the angle down to like 2. That's a bit much. I'm not sure I'm liking this. No simple deform here. Alright, I'm going to add a displace modifier now. And yeah, so yeah, the default settings are not going to work, obviously. But I'll turn the strength down for now. It's still not really doing what we want. It's just kind of inflating it. So we're going to want a texture. So I'm going to click New Texture, and that has created this texture here. But right now this texture is blank. So we need to come down here and click on Texture Properties. And it's already got our texture selected. But we need to change the type. And here Blender has a few default noise textures in here. And I am going to go with clouds. I generally like the results I get with clouds. What that should do is, it'll be hard to see, but should just add subtle bumps to our mesh. Like you see if I turn it off and on how it's getting narrower and fatter now. It's not perfectly flat and straight, the handle, anymore. So if I go 0.02, gets more extreme. So you can play with this, but that's a really good way of sort of varying how it looks really easily and in a procedural way. So I'm actually kind of liking the results I'm getting out of the box with that modifier. I'm not sure if I want to, I sort of want to try to round this bottom piece here though. But that might be a little tricky. That could be tricky, I'm not gonna lie. But we are going to try. So, what if I just bring that down? That's a little flat looking. So I'm going to bevel this. Maybe bring this down even more. And it is pretty low poly right now. That's definitely one thing, but you know, I'm gonna say that's probably enough topology here. We could add more if we wanted this to be really smooth, but I feel like that's probably fine. I mean, you definitely can't even tell, like, I can't see the whole pitchfork, but I can't tell. I still can't tell. I can sort of tell, and only if I get my eyeball up to it, then I can finally tell it's not round. So I definitely don't think you're going to see that in game. That's what I'm trying to say, and the point I'm trying to get across. But anyway. Trying to think if I want to do more. Yeah, I think I do want to do a little more. I think I want to make it not straight. Our modifier's doing a lot for us, but I feel like we should do a little more. So I'm going to hit 1 to go into front orthographic view. And I'm just going to shift these very lightly, either left or right. Just want to move these enough so that they are unique. And maybe I'll like rotate that on the bottom. Yep. And so now we've got like a pretty straight, but not perfectly straight pitchfork. Now I'm just going to do the same thing, but to the side. I'm going to select it. I've hit 3 to go into side orthographic. Alright, so now I'm just going to start grabbing these and moving them very slightly. Again, either left or right. Just to mix this up and make it a little different. I'll rotate that like that. There we go. So now we have a not perfectly straight, but definitely pretty straight. And you could go crazy if you wanted. You could make it look like he, basically just took a stick. It's all crazy. But we're going to go with this for now. And now, the pitchfork. Now, I'm going to try a similar thing that with the pitchfork. I'm going to try a Displace Modifier. Set the strength to something like 0.001 for now. I'm going to come over here and select our texture 01. And I'm going to try to see what that's doing. Like you can see it's not doing much right now, but maybe if I change the order of operations so it's before the subsurf. Still not doing that much. What if we bump the strength up to like 0.01? What does that do? So now that's changing it a fair bit. It seems to mostly just be making it fatter, really. Which isn't quite what we want. If I put it after the subsurf. Yeah. Yeah, I think I like it after the subsurf. I think that's pretty good. It's just adding some randomness to the size of our pitchfork, making it a little less uniform. And just like our pitchfork, I think I might come in here and maybe now I'll just come in and try to like shift it a bit and make it so this thing is not so perfect. But I don't want to go too far, so I'm like messing with the silhouette, basically. Was rotating that causing... No, okay. I was worried. I couldn't tell. I was wondering if it was like ripping the mesh in half somehow. But no, we're good. We're good. Okay, so now the pitchfork's a little less pristine. Could do some more. Could move that up. Could move that down. Move that. And you could go hard on this, really, if you wanted. You could really make this thing look unique and varied. But it looks different enough. Like, it doesn't seem unnatural and weird when I look at it, really, anymore. It looks fine. So I think this is good. I think this is fine. So now I am going to take this and I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to rename it. I'm going to rename this to fork underscore base. Although, to be fair, I have sort of prototyped this a few times. So I'm going to name it fork v3 underscore. Yeah, underscore base. And I'm going to come here and name this handle v3 underscore base. Maybe I'll put an underscore there. So it's fork underscore v3 underscore base. And I'm going to select these objects. And I'm going to go into edit mode with both of them. I want to drag out a UV window here. And you see now the UVs are overlapping because they were unwrapped individually. But since I've selected all the objects, now if I go and I unwrap them, it will fit them all together. But now we sort of have a different thing going on, which is we are not getting a lot of utilization out of our UV map. And that's very simply because it needs to fit in a square, and we have a giant long pole. So that just doesn't really fit in nicely at all. And this is something you want to be careful about if you ever do it. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut up our handle here into different pieces. So I'm going to grab 1, 2, 3, 4 of our edge loops here, and I'm going to mark them as seams. And so now if we select it all, we hit unwrap again, you can see it's basically chopped our handle into little bits. And now we're getting much better utilization. And we could get better utilization still if we cut off these forks here. So like a good place to do that would probably be here. So if we mark seam after selecting those and unwrap, now we are getting even better UV map utilization. But of course the downside to putting seams everywhere, because if you're new to UVing, you might think, well, we should just cut it everywhere. But those seams are going to give us problems in texturing if they're in a very visible place. Normally you'd want to put a seam somewhere you can't see it or on a hard edge. something that breaks up the mesh, not just on the face of it, and certainly not all over it. But this is going to be a more simple prop. This isn't going to be very prominent. And inside of Substance Painter, there's a feature called triplanar projection. And that's going to enable us to, at least if we use simple textures, almost completely hide the seams. And that's going to be the plan here. So we should have this. We should have all our seams. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to duplicate this collection. And I'm going to rename this to _low. And I'm going to take each of these, and where it said base, I'm going to change it to _low. And I'm going to do that low all lowercase. And the case matters here, because inside of Substance Painter, it's going to be looking at our mesh names, and it's going to be looking for this piece of text specifically, the _low, when we do our map baking. And we need a high now. So I'm going to duplicate our low, name that to high, and lowercase high, and lowercase high. And it's important that the mesh names all match. Like it should be fork, fork, handle to handle, and handle low, handle high. And the _high and the _low both need to be at the end of the mesh name. And the collection name doesn't actually matter. You can name the collection anything. That won't affect anything inside of Substance Painter. But now that we've got this, we have our high and our low mesh. We're going to assign materials to our high mesh. We're going to use that to bake a color ID map. So we can use one texture set and very easily apply metal textures to the fork and wooden textures to the handle. So we're going to come in here. I believe I already have some, but normally you just hit new, and you can name it whatever you want, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to name it Metal 1, and you need to make it a strong color generally. Substance might get confused if you use like very gray colors or mixes. So I want this to be a very strong red. And if we come here and we go into material view, you can see this metal piece is now red. I'm going to come in here and make a new material. I'm going to make this material green. And this is a very strong green. What matters is that they are different materials with different colors. You can name the material whatever you want. These are just to bake your color ID map. And you want these on the high poly, which I did not do because I did not hide my low poly or my base. So I actually need to make sure, and that's a good tip, just turn off any collection you're not using. Come into high, and I'll select my material .001. And so now I have my high poly version, which isn't any different really other than these materials. I have the low poly one, which should all have one material. And you can name it if you want. That will potentially control the texture set name inside of Substance Painter, which may or may not matter to you. For our case, it really doesn't matter. All that matters is you want the low poly version to have one material because we want one texture set. We really don't want to waste any resources having separate textures or materials for our pitchfork. Bleh. Speak. Alright. So I think we've got this all set up. And that did take a little while, so I think I'm just going to save, take a break, and we will immediately in the next episode get right into exporting and texturing this pitchfork.